Hello, welcome to my channel. So much has happened. So much has happened in my own life and with Foodie Beauty and Nader and DeeDee, and the ability to even watch them through reaction channels. But I really have been studying up on my Egypt facts and wanted to relate this to the complexities in Nader's personality and why he is the way he is. And part of that is maybe not what people want to hear, which is his culture and his religion and the teachings in the Quran. Now, in Egypt, they follow religious law, which is Sharia law. And in that law system, which is based on the Quran, it is a teaching in the Quran that a woman's testimony is half that of a man's. So basically, you have to have two women for every one man in the court of law deciding in things like marriage and child custody and divorce. And that's not good for women. Sharia law is very antiquated. It's based on ancient laws that subjugate women. And this is something that you can look up. Also, the issue of forced veiling. When men from Middle Eastern countries come to the West and they are exposed to women that are not veiled, they have trouble controlling themselves because they have grown up in a very oppressed culture and they do not see women without being completely veiled from head to toe sometimes. And Egypt is one of these places where women are forced to wear head coverings, and if they don't, they're considered easy or an easy target. The problem is that in the last few years, they've been having sexual assaults on the street by gangs of men this is a daily occurrence, and apparently 88% of women are afraid to go on the street and walk because they will be followed by gangs of men, like 5 or 6 men at a time, and they will be groped and catcalled and followed and stalked and harassed and grabbed. And there are videos of this, and of course, like, news about this that is kind of repressed because, people, you're not really supposed to talk about it. The media suppresses a lot of stuff, but it's still a human rights issue, and the UN has a lot of information and statistics about the stuff that women actually go through in Egypt, which is a lot. And basically, if you are under Sharia law, you can be raped and prosecuted for the rape because you can't prove it, because you need 4 male witnesses. According to the Quran, you need 4 male witnesses that actually see the act of penetration. I know it's bizarre, but this really doesn't have anything to do with Nader, except for the sense that, his views on Western women are obviously that he can kind of collect them. And there is teaching in the Quran and the Hadiths about slave women and the women that your right hand possesses, which is basically everybody else that you're not married to. So they are polygamists. Islamists in Islam, they're allowed to marry up to 4 wives, which means 4 women at one time. So you're already dealing with a lot there. And then you can also have as many other women, non-Muslim women, that you have maybe acquired in battle or, through other means, that are essentially concubines. And this is what Muhammad did, the good and perfect prophet. He basically, he abused women. Okay, there's no way around it. Like, he had a child bride, which is a problem in Egypt now. He married a 6-year-old and then consummated the marriage at 9. He also took his own stepson's wife, married his own stepson's wife after he saw her naked in the tent. There's a whole story about it. But the one thing that has to do with Nader that we see, I think, that is pretty obvious is his willingness to beat women, which in Islam, you are legally allowed and instructed to, in fact, beat your women if they disobey you, if you fear rebellion, or if you even think that they might disobey you. And it's very clear that you are to either scourge them or beat them if they need discipline, and you need to keep them in line. Therefore, in places like Egypt, 70% of the people surveyed in this survey from Egypt said that it was okay to have intermarital violence, domestic violence, in order to kind of keep the peace and things together, that it was justified. That instead of looking at as women's rights, they feel that there are instances when it is appropriate for the male partner to beat the wife. And there is a story that, Muhammad condoned beating his wife. He beat Aisha. There's a story about him punching her in the chest. And I think this also kind of goes into the arena of consent and like sexual consent, because, in Islam, women don't really have rights over their bodies. They're considered basically possessions by their male guardians, and they don't have like female autonomy like a woman would have, say, in the West, or like independence. And so they are paid for. Like, if you get married in Islam, the woman has a dowry from the husband, and that's apparently caused a lot of problems in Egypt with young men because they don't have any money. So they just take it upon themselves to kind of harass women and get it when they can, which is awful. But I think more when it comes to like sexual coercion or like without consent, the teachings in the Quran and Hadiths clearly show that Muhammad said, if you want sex with your wife or whoever, you can have it when you want it on demand. And your wife is not allowed to say no. And that you can plow your wife like a tilth. It basically says that if your woman is on a camel and you need to get some action, that you tell her to get off that camel and have a good time. Or the reason that women should be veiled, which is because they will attract sexual attention and it's immodest, and that's the woman's fault. So she needs to cover up completely, otherwise she's fair game when it comes to sex, when it comes to like showing off her body, However, it's kind of interesting because this whole idea of veiling has been apparently not effective in Egypt, that men have just, they've just mobbed women in the street. And like in these protests in 2011, they have like video of women getting just completely mobbed in this. I mean, it's horrible and it's traumatic, and they can't even get justice when they go to the police, and they still have things called virginity tests. And in 2007, apparently, FGM was outlawed, but because it was like 92% of women were forced to get FGM, which is feminine genital mutilation, which is when they cut off parts of the women, or part or partial, and then they sew her up. And that's what Nader was talking about the other day in his video, which they basically can... In FGM, they can cut off the entire clitoris and the labia and then sew the woman up, and she can't even urinate right, and then she can die from infection. And they usually tie the girls down and use like instruments that may or may not be sanitary. We're talking about Egypt. Egypt is a third world country, or was, and they changed the terminology to underdeveloped country because third world country doesn't sound good. Okay, so you might want to Google pictures of Egypt and look at some of the videos of what women are experiencing in Egypt that I have on a playlist, as well as some other things about Islam and women's rights in Islam and what the Quran and Hadiths teach. So sex on demand is kind of, and in marriage, like there's not even a concept of like marital rape, like basically. So a woman in marriage, she basically needs to provide that, and also she can allow her husband to marry another wife if she can't fulfill his sexual needs. So, because it's allowed, but she's not allowed to have any other husbands. Like, polygamy is only okay for the man, and then the man also only has really the divorce rights. Another odd teaching is that in the Quran, it basically says that Muhammad taught, and the Hadiths, that a woman who is divorced has to have a sexual relationship with another man before she can go back to the original husband. It's just very strange. There's other teachings that are very strange, like the breastfeeding teachings, which were mysteriously eaten by a goat, according to Aisha. Aisha was Muhammad's wife, who he married at 6 and then consummated the marriage at 9. So Muhammad basically condoned child marriage, which is why it's an issue in Islam. And maybe that's why Nader was so comfortable with child SA. I don't know. There's a lot more to talk about here, but I'm nearing the ending of the video, and I will do another video soon. I'm interested in narcissism, S&M, and how it relates with Nader and DeeDee's relationship. And I would like to talk about as well how beating and disciplining your wife is advocated in Islam, basically. So I don't even know if Nader is getting off when he beats DeeDee. I think he may just actually view that as his way of controlling her and kind of keeping her in line. And that's fine. Like, he doesn't have a problem with it. You know, it's very matter of fact. And that's what you do with women. You beat them to keep them in line. And that's what's instructed in the Quran. So I think that they also say that women are more stupid than men because they're mentally deficient, and that they are also lacking religion. So they're not going to heaven. Most women are going to hell. And the idea of heaven in the Quran is a whole nother story, because it's a very lustful heaven where all the women have big boobs and big eyes. I'm not even kidding. And then there's like sex all day long in the Islamic heaven because they get virgins that are imported from hell. So these things are believed, and they are taken literally in many countries and cultures around the world. But more later. Have a great night or day. Bye.